All right, welcome everybody to our May 12th Camp Hill Borough Council meeting. I'm going to call the meeting to order with the roll call. Bonnie Bentz.
Here.
Richard Guerin.
Here.
Alyssa Packer.
Here.
Carl Schultz.
Here.
Aaron Vroman. Zach Williard.
Here.
All right, thank you. Before we approve the minutes, I would like to state that on April 27th, we had an executive session of our Personnel Policies and Procedures Committee. We met to discuss a personnel issue. All right, has everyone had a chance to read the minutes for both the special hearing on April 13th and the regular meeting on April 14th? Are there any comments, updates, changes? All right, may I have a motion to approve the minutes for April 13th?
Motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor of approving the minutes for the April 13th special hearing, please say aye and raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
May I have a motion to approve the minutes for the April 14th meeting?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor of approving the minutes for the April 14th meeting, please say aye and raise your hand. Aye.
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 Okay, great. That brings us to our first public comment. If you have a comment, please raise your hand by using the reaction button, or you can hover over your name under participants and raise the blue hand.
Okay, Brett. Hi, everyone. Brett Miller, 848 Wynwood Road. I just wanted to make a request now that the zoning ordinance has been adopted. I live, again, 848 Wynwood Road, and behind me is Fairview Road. There is a little park, which was part of the updates to the zoning ordinance. It is now a designated municipal park, and there is a speed limit sign there on Fairview. It is for 25 miles per hour. I would like to request that that be changed to 15 miles per hour because it is now a designated Camp Hill Borough Park with the word park under it, just like you have at other parks such as Siebert and also down on, I guess it's Creek Road near the pumping station. There's a section there of Creek Road that is considered a designated park with the 15 mile per hour sign. We have a lot of folks that walk in Country Club Hills. We walk our dogs, and there are a lot of small children who tend to ride their bikes, scooters, etc. And I think it would just be a lot safer if that were reduced to 15 miles per hour. I did talk to Nick Giordano, whose home is right there at the corner of Arlington and the park, and he wholeheartedly agrees, as well as a couple of other neighbors would like to see that reduced. So if you could take that into consideration and make that happen, it would be amazing. And I just had one other quick question. Have there been any appeals or requests for changes to the zoning ordinance by anybody?
Not to my knowledge. And
Great.
Thank you for bringing that 15 mile per hour request to us. I will turn that to public safety to discuss at their next meeting, and we'll carry on with them doing some research on that.
And
Wonderful.
I'll second Brett's comments. My kids are the ones who routinely almost get run over there. And it is a lot of people walk their dogs to that park specifically. And there's a lot of people that cut through that area to head over to kind of all the hospital stuff, you know, back in East Pennsboro, and you do get a lot of speeders there. So I agree with Brett.
Yeah. Yep. Erin's not able to be here tonight, but we'll make sure that gets put on her agenda for her next public safety meeting.
Thank you so much. Okay, Jennifer Hoover.
Thank you, Julie. Good evening, everyone. Jennifer Hoover, 127 South 31st Street. I had submitted some comments via email prior to the meeting this afternoon. one of which did relate to speed limits. And looking at the traffic citations, et cetera, I was curious to know of those, which ones are resident versus non-resident? Because I would imagine the drivers that are speeding through our neighborhood are probably those who live in our neighbors, unfortunately. So I did ask to, I know there's the roving speed device, but what else can we do to educate and encourage our local residents to obey the speed limits? So I did address that as well. But with regards to the traffic and non-traffic citations, et cetera, I had posed a question about the count, using the count of drivers as opposed to maybe a percentage or something, as a percentage of either, I don't know how you would do it, registered drivers, whether that's locally or some other number, to show that 62 persons out of 1,000 drivers would be vastly different than 62 out of 100, just as an example. So I don't know if there's an additional way to make that information a little bit more useful, and I'm sure it's already on the books or available. I just haven't seen it. And then finally, I did submit some questions related to the fund balance policy. So a handful of questions. So I would hope that either you can address those tonight or follow up via email.
This is
before
an
you-
email, you sent this to council or to?
Yes, I sent it this afternoon at 5:12. So I understand it was a little late, but
Yeah, I didn't get it.
Yeah, I'm looking at my emails right now. I didn't see it.
well,
I
it was
didn't either.
emailed at 5:12 to cancel@campbellborough.com. It was CC to Sarah as well, and to the chief, since I had talked about speed limits, driving citations, et cetera.
Did not come through.
No, I don't have
It went
it
to my
either.
junk. It went to the junk, my junk
did
email
it?
on Gmail.
Okay. But we can,
Oh, no.
we'll find it and get it out. But that's why we were not able to answer you. I don't think anyone saw it.
Well, then I guess I'll close by saying if they're not able to be answered or considered, I guess I would respectfully request delay of consideration of the fund balance policy then. So, thank you.
What are your
wanna ask-
questions on the
Yeah,
fund balance
ask your
policy?
questions now.
Okay, if I have the flexibility to do that, I didn't want to monopolize the time. With regards to the language of how it's written, my first question was, what can you give, as you discuss it, can you provide some examples of unanticipated non-recurring needs or anticipated future obligations for which the reserves could be used? I'd also asked, under what circumstances could the use of reserve fund balances for such expenditures be deemed necessary? So there's not a definition necessarily of what necessary is. It seems to be left up to the interpretation of the board. And if so, I guess just to confirm that, is there any requirement that other funding options be considered or used before the reserve funds could be used towards those expenditures? Or if there are any other funds that would have to be expended before those reserve funds would be used? It also talks about a majority vote of the board to use reserve funds. I asked if a 2/3 vote would be more appropriate, since it would make it a little bit more difficult for the council to actually use reserve funds, given the significance and importance of having a reserve fund. And the last two questions relating to the replenishment of the reserve fund. It says that you have to provide a recommendation, but there's no deadline by which the replenishment must occur. So is that within the next fiscal year, the next 2 fiscal years, or 5? I've seen it written various ways when I went looking at other resources. And then finally, it talks about having to provide a proposal about the replenishment. But there's no actual requirement, it seems, that the board actually has to consider that recommendation for replenishment. And going back to the beginning of that fund balance policy, it really is only talking and asking that the board strive to hold those amounts. So there's no actual requirement for council to consider a vote on an actual replenishment proposal. That was my observation. So those are my questions.
Okay. Zach, you want to tackle those when we get to that part of the agenda? Thanks. Okay, any other public comments, Julie? Okay, well, there'll be another time at the end of the meeting for public comment. With Aaron's being absent this evening, we'll jump right to you, Mayor Simpson, to give your report.
Okay, excuse me, real quick, for the month of April, the police department handled 743 calls. And I would like to recognize an officer for an award that he recently received. It's our officer, Ryan McClure. I'm going to read something here. Each year, a law enforcement representative is selected to receive the Cumberland County Victim Advocacy Award for law enforcement. Recipients are nominated and selected by advocates, prosecutors, and sometimes fellow officers within the county. This award is presented to a law enforcement representative for their outstanding service to all victims each and every day. The theme for 2020 was Seek Justice, Ensure Victims' Rights, Inspire Hope. And the 2020 recipient is our officer, Ryan McClure. From the victim services perspective, the 2020 theme, Seek Justice, Ensure Victims' Rights, Inspire Hope, is a theme that is seen daily in Officer McClure's interactions with victims in the Cumberland County community. In 2019, he exemplified the meaning of seeking justice for victims when he, along with the assistance of the Cumberland County Office of Aging and the Cumberland County Criminal Investigation Division, investigated a financial exploitation case of a 92-year-old victim. And Officer McClure followed that case the whole way through, and he is very deserving of this award, and I'd like to congratulate him. The fire department ran 26 calls in April, spent 58 hours on those calls. And we recently had all of our fire hose went through the annual testing that's required by NFPA. That's the report.
Mayor, please convey our congratulations to the officer. That's fantastic. Thank
We
you.
will. Thank you.
Okay, Sarah, manager's report.
I hope that some people have had the opportunity to either talk to or visit or call in to the office. We have a new receptionist. Her name is Tammy Fishbach, and she has jumped in with both feet. So if you need it, she'll find it, or she'll figure out a way to get it from one of the rest of us. So I hope she's a great addition to our staff. I did note in my report that we applied for a streetscape grant. This would be the second grant. We do have one already. This would have been another one. We did not receive that grant that we applied for. Two of the items on my report will be addressed later in the meeting. The Comcast agreement, which has been in discussion for a very long time, but just hasn't ever gotten voted on. And also the easement agreement, I gave a little bit of detail on my report, and we can talk about that more when we get to the item on the agenda. And finally, I hope that you're able to visit Goddard Trail in Siebert Park. There is some new outdoor equipment, exercise equipment stations constructed by an Eagle Scout under the supervision of his father, I think, and Audrey and our staff member, Mike Oxer, who worked cooperatively with Gavin on that project. And I'll tell you, I will be exercising very soon on those pieces of equipment. They're high quality.
That's great. Thank you. All right, Zach, finance.
Okay, thank you. So item A, make a motion to pay checks for April 2021 in the amount of $494,716.12.
Second.
Thank you. Any questions?
That's a nice low number compared to normal months.
Yeah,
Good
that's
job,
a slow
Sarah.
month.
Good job, Sarah.
Okay, all those in favor of the payment of checks for the month of April in the amount of $494,716.12, please say aye and raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay,
Okay, so item B, I'd like to make a motion to pass the fund balance policy.
Second.
Thank you. All right, time for discussion.
So, we've been talking about this going back to last August. This was in Finance Committee a number of times. It was talked about at council, I think, twice. I mean, it's very simply, it's meant to be a good thing. It's meant to be fiscally responsible to set aside reserve funds that we can visibly see. So every month when you look at this packet and you look at all of our different accounts, this is going to isolate money so that we know it's there for any type of emergency, and so that we have to take board action in order to use it. We go through the year and we go through our budgets and we're spending money and things are happening, and council is not necessarily, on top and micromanaging every day's expenditures, but this is meant to be there and we'll know it's there and we can see it every month, and it's going to be there in case we need it. Now, the policy itself, it's just guidance. I mean, this is not an ordinance. I mean, some of Jennifer's questions, I think, we're pretty in the weeds. I mean, different councils in the future can choose to follow this or not follow this. I mean, but it's meant to, guide us and at least kind of try to set the right example. It's a good thing to do for our credit rating. Our credit rating was just affirmed, Sarah, I think, 2 days ago, that we're at Moody's AA2, which is 2 notches below AAA. One thing they've cited in the past is that we do not have a formal fund balance policy. Yes, the borough has had good reserves and the borough does a good job with its finances, but there's no formal policy. They like to see a formal policy that shows that money's set aside and that the council's thinking about that and management's thinking about the ability to have money there for rainy days. And I've used in the past when we've discussed this, I've used COVID as the perfect example of why you want a reserve fund. Nobody knew that was coming. In the beginning of that, everyone thought that, oh my gosh, taxes, money, revenue is not going to come in. Any municipality or school district or authority across the state was pretty scared at the beginning of that last year. Luckily, things for a lot of places have worked out better than anticipated. But I mean, that's the prime example of, if you didn't have a reserve fund, there was a lot of schools who don't have reserve funds who have to do cash flow borrowings just to make their monthly payments. But when you have a reserve fund there, that can help alleviate that type of concern. Luckily, the borough's not been in that situation because it's been managed well, over the past dozen years. But this is meant to kind of get ahead of a problem that could come up. We have a lot going on. We've spent a lot of money on some great projects. But, we do want to make sure that we have money available, in the future. And we've had, other things like, legal things. And those are the types of situations that come up where it's good to already be ahead of the game and have money set aside to take care of that. So, I mean, that's the general purpose of this policy. It's supposed to be a good, happy thing that we can do this now. We have the ability to do it. A lot of places don't even have the ability to create a reserve fund, or it could take 6 years to create a reserve fund because of how tight their finances are. Thankfully, we're in a good position. I tried to write down some of your questions there, Jennifer. I mean, examples of unanticipated needs. I mean, COVID-19 is one of them. I mean, you can have, other types of failures. You could have, a roof collapse or the HVAC system breaks down. Those types of things would be, examples of why you might need to have money available. What deems it necessary? I think, council and staff deems it necessary. I mean, there's not, again, this is meant to be guidance, not kind of, law in stone, but I think, whatever council in the future deems to need this money for is what it can use this money for. Majority vote is just meant to make it so that the council has to think about spending it, that it can't just get spent, in the course of everyday operating expenditures throughout the year. That's the point of the vote. You don't want the vote to be too restrictive, because then that will actually be a problem for the rating agencies. They want to make sure that the money is available to be spent if the borough needs to spend it. Most fund balance policies, I think you just need a majority vote, not a 2/3 vote. I don't know if Lee Stinnett has any comments on that, but in my experience, that's pretty typical.
Yeah, that's pretty typical. And quite honestly, that's what the statutes, various statutes governing boroughs and other municipalities require for action of a municipality.
Okay. Requirement that other funds be expended before reserves are used. I mean, no, we don't, that's not part of this situation. I mean, I know Jennifer has brought up the point in the past that, you know, would we have to spend all of this money before the borough would raise taxes in the future? I mean, that's just for some future borough council to decide. You know, they don't have to, or they could decide that's how they want to handle it. And you know, this reserve fund's not meant to have anything to do with, you know, needing to increase taxes or not in the future. Again, this is just meant to be set aside now because we have the ability to do it, to kind of provide some safety and some cushion for the borough and its finances and its residents. Just to remind everybody, the funding mechanism here is that we decided during the budget season last year is that we were going to take 1 year off from paving the roads. That was meant to put $675,000 into this reserve fund, assuming that we move forward with it. We've kind of delayed passing this because we wanted to see how the finances came out from the previous year. You know, then Sarah came on board, and you know, there wasn't an urgent rush to do this, but it seems like, you know, now we kind of have a grasp on how the year finished up. I think we're going to get a draft audit presented to us maybe in the next month or so. And, you know, now's the time when we can move forward with this. But that would be the initial funding. And if future councils decide they want to put more money in there, they can. The policy has a range. It's 12% to 25% of the budget. So that's, you know, what's recommended. The 25%, you know, would be on the high side. That would be great if you can get to that point. Rating agencies would think that's great. It would help preserve our rating and it would just give us a bigger cushion, but, you know, the borough doesn't have to do that. Any other questions just from council? I think that's kind of the gist of it. I mean, I think we've all heard this a few times now.
And it's that going question. So the money, the amount percentage wise, we're talking about putting in now, you had a range of 12 to 25%. So we're talking about 13, 14% at the moment for the general fund.
Yeah, somewhere about that. Yeah.
And the same for the sewer fund, also the same percentage.
Correct. And the sewer fund, you know, already has a good reserve fund. Again, the purpose here would just be to set aside specifically this, you know, the dollar amount, and it would be, you know, visible and very obvious that it's there and available for whatever it's needed for. I mean, and unanticipated situations on the sewer side are kind of easier. I mean, you have, you know, line breaks and kind of the problems that we run into. Lester's shaking his head. You know, there's no shortage of problems that you can use that money for. But again, it's meant to just isolate it so that we know it's there. We know exactly how much is there available, you know, to help us when one of these things goes inevitably wrong in the future. Anything else?
Yeah.
Hopefully, Jennifer, hopefully I answered your questions. I'm sure you'll have one or two more. You've had a lot of questions about this policy, but, you know, it's supposed to be a good thing.
Okay, no other council questions. I'm going to call the question. All those in favor of implementing the fund balance policy, please say aye and raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Okay. So item C, like to make a motion to pass resolution number 2021-04 to approve franchise agreement with Comcast of Southeast PA LLC.
Second.
Thank you.
And Sarah, I don't know if you want to give us the quick rundown. I mean, this is another one where we kind of took some action back when Frank was around 2 or 3 months ago, and this is the final step to actually move forward.
That's correct. The action you took earlier was to participate in the CapCog negotiation. So you participated in engaging the attorneys that negotiated the contract. So now this is the outcome of the contract, and in order to accept that contract, you need to pass a resolution.
Any
So I had one question. It said in the contract that we would be receiving 5% of Comcast proceeds, correct?
That's correct.
Is
And
that,
that's normal. That's the normal.
That is normal. I didn't know, it looked like we had a contract with them for the past 10 years. Was that an increase in the percentage? Do you know?
They usually reserve it, renew it every 10 years. And I've never seen one that's been different than 5%.
Okay.
It's generally statutory.
Okay.
Anything else? Okay, all those in favor of resolution 2021-04, the franchise agreement with Comcast, please say aye and raise your hand. Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Thank you.
And one last thing, Lee, before we move on. So going back to fund balance policies and back to last summer, the budget season, we continued to talk about the need to get, and I think the borough used to do this, and somewhere in the last few years we stopped, but to start showing, kind of a quarterly budget to actual report, just to help everyone think about the numbers. And, the problem was, I think we were only focused on the budget, when we were doing the budget season, and then we would kind of not be focused on that at the council level. This is meant to be shown to council, quarterly once we get it rolling. We'd have our first one. It was in the packet. Ray gave that to Sarah and I think, just a day or two ago. We didn't necessarily have a whole lot of time to dissect it. And those types of reports, you do have to read them. You can't just kind of look at it high level and say, oh, we're doing good or we're not doing good, because the way that the local government works is, you have revenues come in at different times. You have certain expenditures that go out at different times. So the numbers might look skewed versus budget, but, it's meant to kind of, again, just keep everybody in tune with the spending. I mean, that's the general spirit of having a quarterly report. And as things come up, maybe, when we go through this finance committee, if there is like 3 bullet points or some highlights that we want to let council know, here, these are the 5 things that we should just bring to everyone's attention, that type of thing. We'll do that here as we move forward. But that was in the packet, and that was kind of our first one here for a couple years. So that's it.
Okay, thanks, Zach.
Thanks, Liz.
Bonnie.
Okay. Lester had a very complete report of everything the Public Works has been doing this past month. I didn't know if Lester wanted to make any comments with regard to that report or not. I just wanted to give you an opportunity.
No, I appreciate it. I don't have any other comments. Happy to answer any questions anybody might have, though.
Okay. Did anybody have any questions on Lester's report? Okay. The other thing that I just wanted to comment on with regard to the Public Works meeting that we had, I think it was last week. We met with HRG regarding the beginning plans for the pump station that is that stone building that is just south of the pool in Camp Hill. And it's the last pump station that has yet to have been updated and needs to be updated because parts can no longer be replaced. Mike had provided to us, Mike from HRG had provided to us information that, yes, they did find some asbestos and can't remember, lead in the existing building. And they also identified that if we kept the existing building, we would need to add 2 grinders, each at $50,000 versus 1 grinder with a new building. That new information pretty much identified the fact that retaining the existing building versus designing a new building was a difference at this point in time of only $100,000 in cost. And that is not taking into account any other unforeseen items that may occur if we did keep the existing building and try to retrofit everything into it. So I just wanted to make you aware that the committee fully agreed and directed Mike to start the design process for a new building instead of trying to reutilize the existing building, especially since this is something that needs to carry this community well into the future. So I just wanted to let you know the direction in which the committee directed HRG to go in terms of the design for the new pump station. I think that's all I had to say about that. And then we are now at the engineer's report. So I'll let Mike start and then I will make the motion as we get to that point.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bonnie. The first item on my report was the last one that you covered. So I think that summarized it pretty well. Happy to answer any questions on Seabrook Park Pump Station, but I think Bonnie pretty well summarized our last discussions on that. For the Seabrook Park Trail project, this is an item that Sarah alluded to earlier in her report. We haven't completed the survey work, and Lee has drawn up an easement agreement. We have added the easement geometry for the trail easement on the adjacent Sutliff property and forwarded that to the Sutlifs. They've looked at it and preliminarily agreed. So I think that we're on the cusp of getting their signature and making that official. Then as soon as that's signed, we'll provide it to DCNR so that they'll know we have the authorization of the property owner to do the trail work there. And that wouldn't be any impediment to them awarding us with the grant we applied for 2 months ago. The last item that I have is Challenger Baseball. The contractor has completed their work under the contract and has filed the contract closeout paperwork. Reviewed their paperwork and found it to be in order. So we recommend payment to TR Stoner General Contractor in the amount of $17,399.38, and then subsequent closure of the Challenger Baseball construction contract.
Should I make a motion for council to
Please.
approve
Yes.
to approve the first one, the Seabrook Park easement
Yeah,
or not?
No, the easement was going to be covered under Parks and Rec.
Oh,
So you'll just do the motion for the payment number 2
Okay, all
for
right.
the Challenger Baseball.
Okay, so I would like to make a motion for approval of payment number 2 in the amount of $17,399.38 to TR Stoner General Contractor, and would like to recommend the closure of the Challenger Baseball construction contract.
Second.
Mike, you're satisfied with how everything's gone and it's ready and
Yeah, they've actually, there's been some baseball played out there already. The grass is coming in nicely this spring. We had a little more work to call the contractor out on to do some additional drainage behind home plate.
okay.
We did some infiltration facilities back there, and those seem to be holding up pretty well in the rain events.
Yeah.
So at this point, we're satisfied that they've fulfilled their contract.
Okay, good. Any other questions?
And the
Okay.
Challenger Baseball and Challenger Baseball Little League, I don't know which title the organization uses, they are participating in the payment of this contract. So this is the final payment, and then we will be invoicing the Little League for their portion.
Great, thank you for that reminder. Okay, good. All right, so all those in favor of the final payment to TR Stoner, please say aye and raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, thank you.
And that's everything. in my
That's the
report.
end of my report. Oh, sorry, Mike,
That's all
do
right.
you have something?
No, I was just saying that's the end of my report.
Oh, okay.
All right, thank you. Carl Schultz, Community and Business.
Thank you, Lee. Hello, everybody. So we have monthly report on the agenda. I didn't really have much for a monthly report other than to say, the weather's getting better. Businesses are open again or more fully open, and there's a lot of activity out on Market Street at the businesses. So that's great to see. There will be the summer soiree, June 5, which I mentioned last month. It's going to be a great event. Maybe Julie will mention that later when we call on her for some other things. So that's basically monthly report, but the big items are BNC, the streetscape project, and the website. So streetscape, this has gone on for a while, and I was thinking to myself earlier, why is it so long? Part of it is, this is a good thing to do. It's not, urgent, have to do it, like a lot of things that have come up in the past year plus on that. So to the extent this has gone on for a while and people are tired of hearing about it. Apologies for that, but it's the way it is with what's been going on. But here's the update. So last time we talked about it was December, and we talked about the scope and the cost, and got consensus on that. You know, we knocked out a few items in order to have a reasonable cost. And so then since then, Sarah and staff have been working with the engineers on the details, you know, where exactly a light pole can be placed and that sort of thing. And, you know, we said in December, and it's still true today, costs are estimates. Until we go out to bid and get bids back from vendors, we won't know exactly what the costs are, but we're getting closer. We also said in December that there would be changes from the outline that we had then, and there have been changes. So in the next couple of minutes, I'll tell you about the more significant changes, how we plan to deal with them, and also reiterate that, you know, we're trying to keep people informed. But, you know, we will look at this again when we have the bids and an actual cost, and everybody will get a say on how we proceed with that. So changes, the major changes that have occurred, I won't go into the weeds, but one, the cost for curbing and the need to replace curbing along Market had not been included earlier. Not sure exactly why, but it wasn't. So we need to deal with that. Also, in working with PP&L, and with the wires on the north side of the street and so forth, we can't have the street lights. They have to be shorter on the north side than on the south side. There's also a reduction in the total number of lights based on where things are placed and so forth. That's good. With the curbing, you know, that's unfortunate in a way. It does add some significant cost. However, you know, as with the sidewalks, we believe that we have to treat the property owners who are, you know, maybe business owners or own business properties, but those property owners along Market Street the same way we treat residents. So we expect residents to pay for the cost of sidewalks and curbing when it needs to be replaced, when our streets are being paved. And we will take largely the same approach with the businesses on Market Street. We are still working out, you know, how we deal with exceptions. If somebody has a good curb, if somebody, you know, recently replaced, we'll have to deal with that. So we'll work that out. We'll bring that back to council. But our intent is that most of that cost for curbing gets offset and isn't absorbed by the borough, doesn't raise the cost of the project overall. It probably would mean, because we want to do the work ourselves all at the same time, that's a lot more efficient than having individual property owners do it. It would mean we would incur the cost up front and bill property owners. So, you know, some funds would be expended in year one this year and then not come back to us until the second year. So those are the biggest changes. You know, we want to keep within the amount that we showed council back in December. And again, this is all estimated costs. There's still further engineering to do. We still have to meet with PennDOT. You know, when we do that, when we get PennDOT approval, when we go out to bid and get bids back, that's when we'll have real numbers. We'll come back to council, possibly even come back before that with further developments. But that's where we are. So next step is meeting with PennDOT. That should happen soon. Unfortunately, they can take a while to approve things, and then we'll go out for bid. That's the update. Lee, Richard, Sarah, anything to add on that?
No, just that while Gibson Thomas is bringing it to PennDOT, we'll be meeting with some of the property owners that we need to request easements for. So we can get all that lined up so that when PennDOT approves it, you know, we've got everything signed and ready to go and we can move forward.
Richard, Sarah, anything else? No? Okay. Okay. If people have any questions, happy to answer those either now or outside of this meeting. Next item is the website update. So we've talked about this for a while. Sarah and Julie in particular, have been looking at various vendors. And you saw a slide in the packet with the proposed vendor. And I'll let Julie explain a little more, but I know that she and Sarah looked at several options, and what they're proposing has 3 pretty good points, which is it's less expensive than what we're currently doing. It's more user-friendly and looks better. And it's easier to update and maintain and provide better communication to borough residents. So with that, turn it over to Julie.
Did you say it does all that and it's cheaper?
Yeah.
Surprisingly, just a little bit cheaper, but hey, cheaper is cheaper. I mean, Carl kind of hit on the main subjects, but we did do a lot of research on all the different, mostly municipal website companies. And we reached out to people who use Revise just to make sure there was nothing, that we were going to find out later, oh, they look great on paper, but guess what? They're not. So we did do some research on that. And everyone that we talked to, so like Carlisle, East Penn, a couple of other places, they all kind of raved about them. So we're excited to get started. It should take probably around 17-ish weeks to get it going. But they were able to do more as far as design than the other companies. So it looks more of what I think everyone is looking for. And it's much easier on the back end. So it's going to make it really easy for staff to make changes. So we're pretty excited about it. If you guys get some time to look over the examples that that were listed on that form, that would be great. Anything that you want, definitely included. Feel free to email me or call me, whatever you'd like. But I think we're gonna be able to accomplish pretty much what everyone's looking for with this.
Julie, do you have a time frame?
Well, we're ready to start now if you guys are good with it.
Well, so do we have to approve a contract? Or, I mean, I wanted to get started yesterday. So what do we have to do?
I don't think you do. It's a professional service. It's below the threshold for bidding, and we did secure price quotes from a variety of, we actually got quotes from 5 different vendors. 3 were in the top, and we eliminated 2 pretty quickly, and then we narrowed it to 2, and this one was the best one. So if you'd care to take action to approve engaging Revise to update our website, I wouldn't necessarily approve the specific amount that they quoted because it is a professional service. As we go along, we might find a module that we want to change one way or the other. But you could make a motion to engage this company to update our website if you would care to.
Okay.
What is the cost?
So we had in the budget, it shows 20,000. This is just under 10,000. And that's for the design and the hosting. The annual cost is around 2,500, which is just slightly less than what we're paying currently.
Great.
Carl, you want to make a motion?
Well, I have one question, actually. So with this company, right now, I assume our domain name is being hosted by our current company, is that correct? And
Yes.
then you're saying the price, they will host it. It's going to be transferred over to this company? Okay. And are they going to handle, are we transitioning all of our email over to this company? Is that included in the, are we going to continue utilizing whom we use for email?
Yes,
Okay.
as of right now.
Okay.
That's next on the list. Since
I was
we
going to say,
don't-
because the filters on our current email, as
Yeah.
evidenced by the fact that none of us got Jennifer's email, and we'll probably get it in the white, like we get like every couple weeks, I think we get a list of emails that didn't go through. I think it's not very good. It's a little off topic, but I don't think our particular email service is great.
Okay, so let me make a motion to approve moving forward with revise for the website as described by Julie and Sarah.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor of using revise to update our website, please say aye and raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
I have to tell you, I'm not
Oh, hold on,
comfortable with
we're not-
saying
we're not
yes.
done yet. Wait,
Yeah.
wait. All those opposed?
Oh, sorry.
Okay. You
Just
are,
briefly.
Okay.
Only because I haven't had a chance to look at what's out there, but to see their model. I mean, I'm assuming that everything looks good. My concern is if we're still going to utilize the same company we use currently for email, are we going to have essentially an increased cost per year because now we're also paying a separate company for email?
they were
Whereas
always
before-
separate. Bonnie, they're always separate.
It was always separate. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, it was never the same company. So
Okay.
we have I always want to call them third eye blind, third
element.
element
Okay.
does email, and we used to have someone else do our website, and now we'll have revise. So
Okay. So okay, can I change my answer then? Because my concern was, number one, I wasn't comfortable knowing what each was responsible for and if there was an increased cost associated with still utilizing both companies. So I would say yes.
okay,
Go ahead.
we'll note that in the minutes. Thank you.
Okay.
All right.
And by the way, it's in the packet, but if you look at Carlisle Borough, if you look at East Pennsboro, it's the same company, and that gives you an idea of what it looks like. And there were a couple others, I don't remember, Julie, which they were.
Okay.
New Hanover, and there was another one, sorry.
Carlisle, was it Carlisle?
Carlisle was on there. And they can do pretty much anything. So it's not limited to those websites. If you see something that's not even that company, you can say, hey, I really like this, and I can present that to them, and they should be able to do it. Those are just samples.
Great.
Okay, that's it for me.
Okay, thank you. All right, let's see. Erin is not here this evening. She and Audrey gave me a few things to update on with the monthly report, and then we'll move to the easement conversation. First of all, camp registration is taking place online right now, so time to register if you haven't already. We have summer job openings both at the pool and camp. Applications can be found on our website. Everybody who's trying to get their kid to get a summer job, now's the time. Pool memberships are available online to purchase. Let's see, please remember, you don't need to create a new account if you already have an existing one. The pool opens officially on Saturday, May 29th. Thank you, Lester. Memorial Day service is Monday, May 31st. It is at 9:30. Unfortunately, we will not have the parade this year. We hope to have it next year, but we will have the service at the cemetery at 9:30, and you are welcome to bring your own chair. Masks and socially distancing and all that. So that's the update from Audrey. We have an item to approve an easement. I'm going to ask Alyssa to make the motion, and then we can open it up for conversation and discussion.
Thank you, Lee. I'd like to make a motion to approve the easement with Gregory L. and Susan Gordon Sutliff at 700 Creek Road for Seabrook Park Trail.
Second.
Thank you. Briefly to follow up on what Mike Hess stated in his report, this is I think it's about 1,600 square feet of property that's owned by the Sutliff that has sort of always unofficially been part of the trail, and they've been kind enough. Everyone walks on it with their dogs and their bikes and all that. We just need to make it official in order to apply for the grant to help us with that project. We have met with the Sutliffs, and they are very amenable to going ahead and signing up to do this, or signing up part of the easement. Any other questions that either I or Sarah or Mike can try and answer for you?
So what we're asking is for you to approve the easement agreement conditional upon the execution of the agreement by the Sutliffs because they have not yet signed it. But so because you meet before they've had a chance to sign it, we're recommending that you sign it first, conditional upon their agreement.
Alyssa, do you want to update your?
Yes, sorry, I forgot to mention that. Yeah, so I would move to approve the easement agreement with the Sutliffs at 700 Creek Road for Seabrook Park Trail, conditional upon their signing of the easement.
Second.
Thanks. Okay, any other issues? Questions? Okay, all those in favor of conditionally approving the easement agreement, please say aye and raise your hand. Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, thank you. And that's it for Parks and Rec. Moving right along, Richard Guerin.
All right, thank you. Item A, in the form of a motion to approve agreements for Camp Hill School District Hoover School Project Easement Agreement for Sanitary Sewer and Stormwater Facilities, Access Easement and Maintenance Agreement, Operation and Maintenance Agreement, Stormwater Management BMPs. It's a mouthful.
It is. Can someone second that, please?
Second.
So,
All right, go ahead.
Yeah, Lee, if you want to.
Oh, well, I was going to say we've met with the engineers on this. We were planning to approve it. We realized there's some discrepancies in the drawings that the engineers have and what's really there. And so we've asked them to go back and study it again and update the drawings. So I'd like to suggest that we table this for now until we have all the information we need and can make an intelligent decision. Sarah, you want to add anything to that?
Oh, and we just learned this yesterday, so the packet had already gone out. I didn't want to actually remove it from the agenda. So that's why it's still there, even though we subsequently realized that we're not prepared for you to take action on it. We want to make sure that it's done correctly. I know this has been sitting for a while. The school district approved it some time ago. We're not sure what happened in between there, and we need to clarify that before you actually approve those agreements.
So do I have to make a motion? Just table it, right?
Yeah. I don't think we moved. Lee, do we have a vote? We moved to table it and then do we vote to table it? I believe.
Yes, yeah, I would vote. Yep.
Okay. All those in favor of tabling Richard's motion, please say aye and raise your hand. Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, thanks. As soon as we get everything back, we'll bring it back and, be able to move forward.
All right, item B, your monthly report. I'm actually going to turn that over to Chris Miller because I have 3 things to top out. 1, have you read of the coyote and fox issue in town? 2, just an update on the Quattro cell antenna application and about the windstorm.
Okay, so approximately 2 Fridays ago now, we had a pretty good windstorm come through Borough Camp Hill. One of the issues that we had is we had 3 homes, 2 were moderately damaged, 1 minor damage. We also had a vehicle that was severely damaged. The one thing that I'm going to be working with the Shade Tree Commission on and working with Julie Hill to get on the website is for folks to service their shade trees if they need to be pruned back, things like that, because that seemed to be an issue through this current storm. I will say that all the public safety services worked very well hand in hand together and really handled things well. I was very pleased. Chief Simpson, I'm sure you can weigh in on that as well, but everybody worked well together and we managed everything and pretty much wrapped everything up in about 5.5 hours. So we did pretty good. Notices of violations are out for the homes that were damaged. We already have contractors in starting the work, that sort of thing. Lester's crew did a good job. Sarah, was supporting us getting the crews out there as well, getting things cleaned up the next day. So again, the system works. I can't say enough good about it. It really, really came together. As far as the fox and coyote issue, we were having an issue Lincoln Street off of 21st, Dartmouth Street, places like that. We have been in contact with the State Game Commission. They are aware of it. They are looking into it. We have been also trying to educate folks as to what not to put out, make sure your garbage is in cans with a lid and things like that, because when we went up and assessed the area, we found that was not the case. We also found 3 properties that were very much overgrown and had issues. We're working those heavy with notices of violation and enforcement action. In fact, I'm working with Lee Stinnett on 1 property. We are poised and ready for re-inspection of that property next Thursday. And we'll be ready to go with some legal action there and some other additional action to cut things back and try to trap some of those animals and take care of it. As for the cell phone tower over at the Quattro development, we've been working with Telecom. They are upgrading that tower to complete 5G service. The actual antennas that were going up there will be smaller than the ones that are there now. They'll be less obtrusive. I was able to work with Telecom and came to an agreement to even make it a little bit safer. For example, the hardware that they're putting on there will take a 30-second sustained wind of 116 miles an hour. I'm sorry, a wind blast of 116 miles an hour and sustained winds of over 60 miles an hour, that sort of thing. And they were very agreeable to that. So they will be less intrusive, and that work should start fairly soon as the permit has come back. Sorry, Richard, did I miss anything?
Nope. Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions for Chris? Okay. Item C, zoning ad hoc committee update. The last thing we were working on was the overlay district demolition, and we reviewed it and made the changes. We haven't got a final copy back from the consultant. I'm not sure, but I believe that zoning ad hoc committee might be finished. Worst case scenario for 1 more meeting. Item D, climate action plan report. So at our last meeting, we met with the representative for the state, and she supported us joining the local climate action plan. Hopefully we get approved when they open it up in July and August. And we're still in need of volunteers for that. Sarah's received, I think, 3 names of people in the borough, 1 person outside the borough. But if anyone's interested, please contact Sarah to join our committee. That's it for planning and zoning.
All right, thank you. Alyssa, personnel.
Thank you. One item to note in terms of the monthly report, Ray Madden is retiring, and we're thankful for his service, 20 plus years. How many years? I'm not sure exactly how many.
About 20, yeah.
About 20 years of service to the community. So we appreciate his service, and he'll be retiring effective May 28th. So we're working on a transition plan for interim financial management, and we'll be advertising the full-time position soon. That's all I have for the monthly report. And then, as you may remember, we said that during COVID, we would continue to have monthly discussions about the buildings being open, the facilities being open. Most things are open now, but I think we're not fully back to normal. And so we want to hear the staff's recommendation. And then based on that recommendation, we'll make a motion. We'll ask questions and make a motion to move forward with any changes we might want to implement. So Sarah, were you guys recommending changes from where are we right now? And what changes do you guys recommend moving forward?
Chris and Audrey can jump in if you'd like to, but we feel comfortable at this point that we're able to open all borough-owned facilities. There will be some policy changes from normal for rentals, and there will be higher levels of cleaning, possibly some additional cleaning fees to help to cover that cleaning. Our guys will be busier in the restrooms at the parks, but we feel like it's time to get those facilities open for the public, particularly in accordance with the governor's order that businesses be able to open effective May 31st. So we thought that our opening date for borough facilities would be June 1st. With the exception of the pool will be open, but we're not going to have rentals for pool parties this year. So that would be the only exception to the facilities opening.
Thank you, Sarah.
We are well stocked and supplied. Our first responders have been well trained through this thing and well stocked and supplied. So I agree with what Sarah's saying. I think it's, it's time and we can do so safely.
That sounds great. Well, let me make a motion and then we can have discussion about this. So I would like to move that we vote to approve the staff recommendation to open our facilities as of June 1st with some minor modifications to policy, with the exception being the pool will not be available for rentals.
Second.
Thank you. Any other questions for Chris, Sarah?
Will the
The only
snack
question I
shack,
have is,
will the snack shack be open at the pool?
This, I believe that, oh, there's Audrey. There you are. You can answer that.
Snack, it's going to be open, but we're going to have prepackaged food. We won't be actually cooking this year.
the only question I have is, so I agree with everything that's been said. So I know next Wednesday, everything opens up to 75%, 50, 75%, 100% May 30th. I was hoping to have a committee meeting next weekend, next Thursday, more in person than online, if that's possible.
I think, can we talk about the facilities first? And then I think we can have a separate conversation about our meetings. Is that okay, Richard?
Yeah, I didn't know if the facilities would meant that stuff, but sure, that's fine.
Yeah, no, we're able to have meeting right now. The Borough building is open, and I think there's nothing stopping us from having in-person meetings other than like this is how we've been doing it for a while.
Yeah, because some committee meetings have been in person in the Borough building. So
Yeah.
Have at it.
Can I just make a comment about that? If you are going to have a committee meeting, just be aware that we are holding recreation programs in the community room on certain days already. So I don't know what time all your committee meetings are, but if they're going to be actually in Prosser Hall, just check with me first. Thank you.
Does that also mean we meet in person next second Wednesday in June?
We'll come back to that conversation.
Never mind. Right.
I promise, right after this vote. So this is like, we're removing the porta potties. The big changes here are we're removing the porta potties from the parks. We will be allowing the facilities like the cabin and Prosser Hall to be rented again. Those are the big changes from where we are right now.
Okay. So all those in favor of reopening the facilities with the exception of no rental of the pool for pool parties, please say aye and raise your hand. Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Okay.
I think now for the question of Richard's question about how we want to meet. So your thoughts, Richard, are that you'd like to have in person. We could just open this up for conversation, I think.
Well, I was worried about two things. One, the committee meetings, because some of the zoning stuff's easier to have hand in front of us versus talking. It's very confusing sometimes. And the second one is when we open up to the public for monthly meetings, I'm sure you guys have worked out how do we want to do it, broadcast them at the same time as being in public. Those are my questions.
Chris, what are your thoughts? What are your thoughts about opening up, having public meetings again? I guess, and I'm also curious to hear Lee's Stinnis thoughts about what municipalities are starting to do. I think we're still legally able to hold virtual meetings.
Correct.
As long as the emergency order.
I think
That's correct.
I think managing your committee meetings are easy, so to speak, because you only have so many folks in, that sort of thing. If we have large scale in-person meetings, that becomes a bit of a challenge where we have to make sure we're social distancing. We have to make sure we're cleaning appropriately before and after. We have to make sure that we're affording people, hand sanitizer and things like that as they come through the door. So I think large scale meetings may be a little more challenging. I don't think it's a hurdle we can't get over if that's what the council so chooses, but I think we need to recognize that those hurdles are going to be there. Committee meetings, definitely. I don't think that's an issue at all for the committees to meet in person and for the public to come in for that, because typically you get 3 to 4, maybe sometimes 5 people, and that's very manageable with what we have. But I just caution you just a little bit on opening for the large public meeting without having first
reviewing and setting up how we're going to do it to make sure that we're still meeting all those social distancing challenges and things like that. Again, I don't think it's anything we can't meet, but we just need to review those and go over it.
I just have two questions. I know Sarah's already looking into streaming and how to stream the meeting for people who don't want to attend. And then my other question is, and Chris, I'm not as good on CDC guidelines as you are, but if we're vaccinated and we're inside, we don't have to wear a mask. So my thought is for those of us on council speaking into a microphone with a mask, we already have, it's hard to hear if you're in the back of the room. I'm assuming people will be in the back of the room because they're going to be well spread out. If we're vaccinated, if all of us on council are vaccinated, do we have to wear a mask and
No.
to the microphone, or how does that work?
According to CDC guidelines that are out there right now, a group of individuals that have received their vaccination can basically be in the workplace or cohabitate and not have to wear the mask. It would be personal choice at that point. The issue to that, like you said, Lee, is there's folks that aren't going to want to venture out yet, and I respect that. They're also allowing contactless drop off yet for plans and things, and there are folks that are taking advantage of that. So, you know, it becomes that balancing act there. And you're right, it'll be kind of hard to hear you. I think Sarah working on what she's working on with the streaming is awesome. And, you know, maybe we could sit down and talk about it and kind of come up with a plan as who all would be there, who all wouldn't, you know, that sort of thing. But you're right, you don't have to wear the mask if you've all been vaccinated.
Okay, that was my big question.
I think the challenge will be like, I know at work, like we're allowed to now, you know, or will be June 1st, not wear masks if we're vaccinated, but we also have to share proof of vaccination with HR. That's just an example. So like, not that I don't trust you guys, but I mean, it seems like we're all vaccinated. Okay, we're up there. But like if people are coming in the room, the public, you know, we could show our cards and share our cards with Sarah, show we're all vaccinated, be up there together. But people coming in, I think would the expectation still be that they would wear masks then unless they wanted to share a vaccination card? I don't know. It's just a question I have.
I think that may be at least in a question because I'm not sure we can request that information from the public. I think I would require, I get the idea you've all been vaccinated, that information is going to be shared with Sarah and we understand that. But I think the public coming in, there should probably still be a mask mandate until we get just a little further down the road here. Just for
I would agree. I was just wanted to clarify that point. That makes sense, I think.
Yeah, I mean, generally speaking, the order still applies to individuals inside and outside of local government facilities, courthouses, et cetera. So the mask requirement still applies to those gatherings. Honestly, before your next meeting, I would probably expect updated guidance.
Yeah.
So, you know, that might provide some guidance. I will say to your question about what other clients are doing, most are moving to a more hybrid model where the boards are there, present, public. They're offering a Zoom option for those or some other streaming option for those who might not want to venture in. I know Ms. Hoover has mentioned before that she would love to see that as an option moving forward. And it seems that pretty much everyone that comes to my client meetings, that's what they want as well. And I think that also helps with some of Chris's concerns because some folks who prefer just to sit and listen and maybe not participate as much might be more comfortable sitting at home at their kitchen table or wherever they might do their watching from and do it there. And that helps with the numbers in the building pretty significantly, I think.
And we did put money into our tech system not that long ago. I mean, hopefully it has some capability. I mean, we have that big screen now. I'm sure we can use that somehow.
Yeah, we put the microphone way apart from everyone when they come up to speak.
What I'm envisioning and what Julie's smarter than me, so she's going to help me. A camera, we have a camera. The camera would be in the audience as though it was a member of the audience. So it would be able to see, I mean, I don't think, unless you want us to hire someone to sit there and pan back and forth, depending on who's speaking, we're gonna have to sit it back far enough that there's a wide enough view that that the camera can see everyone sitting at the table, and presumably screen behind your heads that a member of the audience would be able to see. I mean, we can go as crazy technologically as you want. I've seen municipalities that are streaming every meeting, that have placed cameras all around their room. I think that could get really expensive, but if that's what you want and what the public wants, then it might be a worthwhile investment. So depending what it would be really difficult for us to do would be to allow people who are watching from home to actively participate in the meeting. They're going to just, if they'd like to participate in the meeting by submitting public comments, they would need to do that in advance in written format. We would probably have like a 2 o'clock that day cutoff for submission of comments that could be read as part of public comment at the beginning of the meeting. But otherwise, the audience watching online would be passively participating in the meeting.
I mean, it's not going to be perfect, and it certainly isn't going to be perfect the first meeting or two. So I think what you said sounds like a good starting spot.
Sorry, I'm just laughing, remembering our first Zoom meeting.
Yeah, that wasn't perfect.
In reference to what,
It cannot be worse than that.
It cannot. So
in reference to what Lee had said about guidance coming out, what we're hearing, and Mark Simpson and I have been staying on top of this pretty good, emergency management wise, but what we're hearing is we're hearing new guidance should be out after the 31st. And then we're hearing that additional guidance should be forthcoming after we reach the 70 or 75% vaccination rate statewide. That was the last that I heard. That was 2 weeks ago. So we have not received any yet, but it is supposed to be forthcoming.
Well, it sounds like,
I'm
go ahead.
Alyssa. So I guess my question to all of this is, I have found, particularly for some of the committee meetings, that it is so much easier and so much better in terms of time efficiency, as well as I think more accessible for the public to have committee meetings where you don't necessarily have to be going over a lot of documents, where it's largely comments and discussion. I would hate to see us eliminate the choice by committee chairs to choose to, hold the meeting virtually versus in person once we are saying we're opening up for public meetings. I'm hoping that we can continue to do committee meetings if it seems like that will be easy based upon the topics.
We're only
to hold
able
them
to do that
virtually.
right. I think we're only
Pardon
able
me?
to do that right now because of special legislation that's passed. So if
Look, look, you can stand off camera and look.
Even for the
So-
committees though, Alyssa?
Right.
what?
Is it even for the committees, or is that just for like advertised public meetings?
I'm not sure, Lee.
There's Lisa. There he is. Thought you left.
I mean, it would depend on the subject matter of the discussion, whether it was subject to the Sunshine Act and the advertising requirements thereunder. But that it would really depend on the conversation that was had.
Well, I guess all of our committee meetings are advertised now, though. Okay, that's true.
I mean, they would still be advertised even if they were virtual. So I guess my question is, unless the state says we can no longer hold Zoom meetings, I'm hoping that you all would agree we could continue that if the committee chair preferred it.
So my view on both the committees and in particular the full council is, we'd love to get back together. It's clearly better in many ways, but we've been able to make our meetings accessible to the public on Zoom. I think people appreciate that. So unless and until we're ready to host the meetings in a way that people can participate, whether they're there or not, I would suggest we hold off. Now, maybe, I don't know exactly what Sarah's doing. I don't know if we're close to ready to do that, so people still could participate essentially the same way that they participate now by Zoom. I don't know about the written versus spoken comments part, but I think there's an expectation, and it's a reasonable expectation out in the community, that people can participate the way they've been participating for the past year or so, and we should be very careful not to do anything contrary to that. If that means waiting a month or two, so be it, in my view.
All right, I don't think we need to take action on anything. I think, we have things to figure out before we meet in person, but if a committee chair wants to host an in-person meeting, they can do so, is what I'm hearing. And just as long as we let the public know how they can join, if the public's not interested in coming in person, which is the same way it's always been, to email Julie. And I think it's pretty easy to just have a laptop set up with the person, in a committee meeting. It's pretty easy to have that work for someone to join virtually. And that's all I have.
Okay. Good discussion.
I'm sorry, Lee, do you want us to shoot for being prepared to do something at the June council meeting, or we're going to work on it and then report back in June?
I'd say that.
Okay.
Let's have a better final. We'll have had an update from the governor, and it'll give you and Julie a chance to do some more research.
Okay.
And then, if we can vote, if June can be our last virtual meeting, that would be great. And, we can start in July, but we can discuss again in June.
Sounds good.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Richard, I don't think we've had a school district meeting. Is there any update?
No.
Okay. All right. Comments from council. Bonnie, I'm going to start with you.
No comments.
Okay, Richard.
Two things. One, I just want to welcome Lester aboard. And two, or echo what Chris said, I told those guys before, Public Works did a great job with the windstorm coming by, clearing the streets, clearing the trees, making everyone feel safe. I appreciate the help. Thanks.
Alyssa. Okay. Carl.
Nothing else. Thank you.
Okay. And Zach.
No, thank you.
Okay. All right. That brings us to our final public comment. If you'd like to make a comment, please use the notification button at the bottom or hover over your name and raise your blue hand.
Okay, Jennifer Hoover.
Thank you, Julie. I just want to say thank you for answering my questions earlier. First, and regarding the last conversation, thank you for delaying any decision on how you're returning in person. I think a lot of residents would favor the hybrid approach, provided, as was mentioned by Bonnie and Carl, that residents can still fully participate. I'm a little concerned, given the outset or the start of this meeting, having submitted public comment, but having it go into spam. I'm concerned about if I don't know how we remedy that, or how, I mean, it seems to be an ongoing issue that has persisted for a year or more. So I'm concerned that if there was some sort of limitation that residents could not participate and offer comments virtually. I don't know how you ensure that their comments are acknowledged or received or presented, since we oftentimes don't get acknowledged in receipt. So I guess I just am in agreement with certain members expressing, how can we fix that or prioritize that going forward so that there is full ability for residents to participate virtually if that's their given method of attending. So thank you.
We can work with our solicitor on that too. Any other comments? All right, Aaron is not here. So Zach, would you like to adjourn us?
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you. Good night, everybody. Thanks for a good meeting.
No.
See ya.